This is huge, this is big, and this is not hypothetical. The vice president of the Chicago Bulls, Arturas Karnisovas, has come out and he has vowed to make changes with the Chicago Bulls moving forward this offseason. He talks about the coaching staff. He talks about the front office and he talks about some players. We are going to be talking about what Arturas Karnisovas has revealed to Chicago Bulls fans after a tough loss to the Miami Heat. This is Rico Greenhowe. This is another episode of Bulls Digest. And before we jump into it, I want to let you know that 85.2% of you guys that watch the videos are not subscribed. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with the latest news and happenings of the Chicago Bulls. Without further ado, guys, let's jump into the first part of the video, which is the Bulls headed to a rebuild, guys. And so this is coming on the heels of what Arturas Karnisovas had to say. And I will say this. We've talked about the fact that we've needed to make changes. We've speculated that we've needed to make changes, but this is the first time we've actually heard it from Arturas Karnisovas that he is going to make those changes. And so this is exactly what he had to say in an article here. So Chicago Bulls executive vice president of basketball operations, Arturas Karnisovas, fell on his sword and vowed to make changes after the team he constructed missed the playoffs for the second straight season. He said he takes full responsibility and promised to get creative in reworking the roster despite having no salary cap space. He'd like to resign DeMar DeRozan and plans to bring back Coach Billy Donovan, but he struck a far different tone Saturday following a knockout loss to the Miami Heat in the play-in tournament after opting for continuity over change in recent years. "I'm thinking about winning," Karnisovas said. "That's why I'm here. I'm not here to stay in the middle. The formula that came up 3 years ago, I thought it was working until a couple of injuries. And we're going to have to find these answers this offseason. Obviously, the results are not where we want it. I totally get it, and it's on me to figure it out. I'm going to look at the totality in this group," Karnisovas said. "This group hasn't worked. There's a lot of great things in certain individual players and a lot of young guys that took a step forward, and it's positive. But in totality, as a group, it didn't work. So I'm going to have to find these answers in the offseason." Karnisovas insisted he has total confidence in the front office and has no plans to make changes there. He also said he still has the support of the chairman, Jerry Reinsdorf, and the CEO, Michael Reinsdorf. He acknowledged the results need to improve. "I got to do my job better," he said. "It's my responsibility. This program is my responsibility. Jerry and Michael have been really supportive. Obviously, their expectation is better results. That's why we're diving into this offseason. I put emphasis on turning this program around." And then Karnisovas gave his coach a strong endorsement and said it's management's job to give the coach the right personnel. "He's obviously a great leader, a great coach," he said. "I've got to do a better job to help him to find a group. We put emphasis on cohesion this year, and I think this group kind of bonded again. In totality, it didn't work, and I have to find these answers." All right, guys, so a lot to unpack in this one. Let's start with what he last said in endorsing the coach. All right, I love the fact that he takes the responsibility and saying, "Look, I am the guy who went out here and got these guys on the roster, and I gave Billy Donovan this roster. I thought that these guys were going to be out there and they were going to play together. I thought that they would be out there for the vast majority of the season. That has not happened. Obviously, we've been hit by injuries." So he acknowledges the fact that he put this roster together and that, yes, he has put the coaching staff in a tough position. That's number one. Number two, he's stating that he is not going to make any front office changes. So that means that we're not going to change the GM, and he's obviously getting the support from some of the owners of the teams and things like that. So they're not going to move on from Karnisovas. So that's number two. But number three, I thought it's interesting when it starts the article. He said that he would like to keep DeMar, and he likes to stay with Billy Donovan, but he's looking to possibly explore maybe shaking it up. And so I think that that's quite interesting. And so, one of the last things to think about in this, guys, is essentially where we are as a roster, right? And so that brings up to the next point here, and that's the Bulls get creative. He mentions that here in the article. And this is what we're looking at, all right? The team was built around DeRozan, Lavine, and Vooch, and it hasn't produced the way the Bulls hoped to in the past few years. Obviously, Lonzo Ball hasn't played since January 14, 2022 with the left knee injury. Lavine played in just 25 games this year before having season-ending foot surgery. And he's got a $215 million contract extension that he signed in 21-22. Vooch just signed his deal, which is through the 25-26 season on a $60 million extension last June to avoid the free agency. So that's kind of the state of where the Bulls are. Look, are we headed to a rebuild? The answer is yes. Do I think we're headed to an overall rebuild of this? I don't think so. I don't think that Karnisovas is going to tear down the team incomplete. Like he does mention in there were some guys that stepped up. There were also younger players that surprised him as well. So that leads me to believe, I think that Karnisovas is going to reward the players that stepped up. Those players would be, in my opinion, it would be DeMar DeRozan, and then it also would be building around Kobe White and also to Dosunmu and going with those young pieces. He's going to find a way to get better with those guys. Now, the creativity on the roster, that's where it's going to be tough, man, because looking at this thing, I think we've been talking about moving Lavine. We've been talking about moving Lavine a lot. And I noticed that we also, as Bulls fans, we've had issues with Vooch as well. Like, we're disappointed with the fact that Vooch's productivity was bad. He obviously has shown that his career numbers have dipped as far as stretching the floor. And that really makes you question, okay, if he's not stretching the floor like he used to, why is he there? All right. And there's only a couple deals that I could come up with that would make sense financially, but I don't think it makes sense for both teams. And this would be something that's just way out there and hypothetical. Let's say that we were to move both Vooch and Lavine. All right. And there's only one team that I could think about that could take on those salaries right now, or two teams that could take on those salaries. One being the Portland Trailblazers. And in a deal that I would suggest that we've talked about Jeremy Grant coming over. It's possible that we could get Jeremy Grant and we also could get a guy like DeAndre Ayton. In return, we would ship Lavine and we would also ship Vooch over. Now, this is assuming that we're not necessarily bringing back DeMar DeRozan. Like, I don't know what's going to happen there. But these are just deals that possibly we could just make right now and move that. Another one would be if we were to move on from Lavine, we were to move on from Vooch, and we were to move on from Zoe. If somehow we could perhaps get the Nets to agree with this deal, which I don't think they would do it, but if we could get back Cam Johnson, we could get back Mikal Bridges in this deal, like that would be huge for us as well. That also would give us something to do as far as a stretch. And as far as Lavine's salary, it would be a salary dump. We would also take back Ben Simmons, and I think we would clearly buy him out. I don't think that Ben Simmons is going to play at the highest level again, and I also don't know he wouldn't be a benefit for us. So those are two deals that I'm just throwing out there from a creative standpoint. But it's going to be interesting what we're going to do this offseason. But I will say this. On a day where many teams took a 1-0 lead, respectively, in the Eastern and Western Conference playoff series, I think that this is just as exciting for the Chicago Bulls fan base because we finally get a chance to hear it from Arturas Karnisovas that changes will be made, and we don't have to speculate this. Now it's like getting excited of saying, okay, now that you've acknowledged the failure, what are you going to do to fix this? And guys, like I said before, the Chicago Bulls are not a terrible team. We're middle of the pack team. We've shown that. We are the middle of the pack. I threw up the ratings here on the last video showing you that we are middle of the pack. If we can just increase defensively what we can do there, stop people from getting a lot of three-pointers, stop fouling all the time as well, and get a little bit tougher inside and stretch our own shooting, this is a team that could be dangerous, especially in the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference is not like the Western Conference. The Eastern Conference is always up in the air, and you always have a chance because, quite frankly, the stars that are in the Eastern Conference, they're always either hurt or something happens to them. Look at what happened to Philly. Look at what happened to Milwaukee. Look at what possibly can happen to the Boston Celtics. They're like an injury away. Or the Miami Heat, the injuries that they're going through. Now, if we were in the Western Conference, this would be a little bit more of a tougher climb because it's so competitive over there. So I will say that there is hope for the Chicago Bulls. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think that the trades that I threw out there are something that we remotely should be interested in, or is it just trash? That's fine. Next up, do you guys think that Arturas Karnisovas is going to hold his word and he's actually going to make changes? And do you think he's going to backtrack on some of the things that he's committed to? Like, do you think that he possibly will fire Billy Donovan? Do you think that he will let DeMar DeRozan go? Do you think he's going to clean house and let DeMar go? He's going to also let Lavine go. He's going to let Vooch go. He's going to just pretty much clear out everything. What do you guys think in the comments? Let me know. This is Rico Greenhowe. This is another episode of Bulls Digest. And as usual, guys, even though we don't know, let's go Bulls. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.